Softly, the night settles around you, and you begin to drift into a quieter space where thought and breath move at a slower, gentler rhythm. The world outside begins to fade, as if the edges of your awareness are softening like sand dunes in moonlight. In this calm, you are invited to enter a space between waking and dreaming, a space where stories unfold not with sharp clarity, but with a warm blur of memory and imagination woven together. As you breathe, the tension in your shoulders loosens, and your mind becomes open to a journey that blends mystery, history, and the ancient human instinct to look upward at the stars. For thousands of years, long before our modern world tried to categorize and measure every phenomenon, people have gazed into the night sky with a mix of wonder and curiosity. Ancient civilizations, from the Sumerians in Mesopotamia to the indigenous tribes across the Americas, carved their understanding of the universe into stone, earth, and oral stories. They believed that the night sky held messages, patterns of meaning that could guide harvests, wars, destinies, and dreams. When unusual lights streaked across the horizon or strange shapes hovered silently above their lands, they didn't respond with fear alone. Often, these anomalies were considered omens, signs of gods, ancestors, or powerful forces beyond comprehension. As you relax deeper, you may imagine how those early observers felt, standing in vast, open landscapes, listening to the hush of the night, and sensing that the universe was alive with secrets. Even in peaceful moments, the night sky encourages your mind to wander. There is something inherently soothing about the distance of the stars, their steady glow across unimaginable expanses. Yet alongside this calmness lies a mystery that has persisted across every era of human existence. What are the lights that appear without warning? What is the origin of shapes that fly in ways no human craft should? These questions are as old as time, and tonight you drift into a story that embraces that duality, comfort and curiosity, dream and inquiry. As you settle more deeply into your pillow, your breath forming a slow, rhythmic pattern, imagine yourself walking across a quiet desert. The ground is cool beneath your feet, and the horizon stretches endlessly, touched only by the soft shimmer of starlight. Desert nights have always been places where silence expands, inviting reflection and a heightened awareness of subtle details. It is in landscapes like this that many of the world's most puzzling sightings have occurred. In such silence, even the smallest glimmer in the sky becomes noticeable. It is a canvas of pure darkness where any movement, any flicker, feels amplified. This calm isolation encourages not fear, but a deepening curiosity, the kind that has shaped countless stories throughout history. As your thoughts gently drift, imagine the quiet hum of the universe surrounding you. There is a timeless quality to this stillness, as if the boundary between past and present begins to dissolve. You can sense the presence of all the people who, over centuries, have looked up at the same stars you see now. Farmers, travelers, soldiers, astronomers, each one paused in their nightly routines to witness something unusual, something that did not fit neatly into their understanding of the world. These experiences were often shared quietly, whispered among families or written in journals, preserved in ways that allowed their mystery to survive into the future. Tonight's story follows that lineage, beginning not with shock or fear, but with a gentle recognition that the unknown has always accompanied humanity. As you continue to relax, your awareness becomes softer, your imagination more receptive to the journey ahead. This is a story shaped by real history, genuine eyewitness accounts, government reports, and quiet reflections. But it is also shaped by the serene pull of the night, where questions drift more easily than answers, and where curiosity becomes a companion rather than a disturbance. Let yourself breathe deeply here, knowing that the mysteries we explore are not meant to alarm, but to soothe, to gently guide your thoughts away from the weight of the day and into a softer realm of wonder. You are entering a narrative where the truth is as subtle and shifting as the patterns in a dream. As you let go, the boundary between the real and the imagined becomes thin, flexible, and quietly inviting. And in this space, your own personal dream time, the story begins its slow, steady unfolding, carrying you toward the heart of one of the most captivating mysteries the stars have ever inspired. In the quiet expanse of the New Mexican desert, long before the name Roswell became synonymous with mystery, the region carried an atmosphere of stillness mixed with subtle tension. It was the late 1930s and early 1940s, and the world was shifting faster than anyone could fully comprehend. The war had changed technology, politics, and the very way people viewed the sky overhead. Roswell itself was a modest town, defined by vast open land, resilient residents, and the constant hum of military activity from the Roswell Army Airfield. The base was home to the 509th Bomb Group, the only unit trained to handle the most advanced and secretive weapons of the time, including atomic ordnance. Even in daytime, the presence of the military created a feeling that hidden operations were always unfolding just out of sight, shaping the daily rhythms of life in ways civilians could only guess at. Walking through Roswell in those years, one might have noticed a unique mix of calm rural life and deep government secrecy. The desert winds would sweep across ranches and dirt roads, while just miles away, classified equipment and experimental aircraft were being tested in secure hangars. Residents saw military trucks rumbling by at odd hours, aircraft flying in tight formation overhead, and officers who spoke carefully, always mindful of what could or could not be said. This was the environment where suspicion and curiosity naturally grew, not from paranoia, but from simple observation. Something was always happening, yet few knew exactly what. And in a time when trust in authority was shaped by war, people rarely asked questions directly. The psychology of the era played its own quiet role in shaping the Roswell atmosphere. After the trauma of global conflict, many felt both hopeful and uncertain as they entered the dawn of the Cold War. Rumors of espionage, new weapons, and foreign threats were becoming normal parts of conversation. Newspapers printed articles about rocket technology, secret Soviet experiments, and the possibility of aircraft that could fly faster and higher than anything previously imagined. The sky was no longer just a place for clouds and stars. It had become a canvas for innovation, danger, and the unknown. For many Americans, the idea that something extraordinary could appear above them was no longer far-fetched. It felt like a natural extension of a world rapidly changing. Meanwhile, technological tests in the Southwest were underway at a scale few civilians realized. High-altitude balloons, experimental gliders, radar-reflective materials, and advanced prototypes were routinely launched, tracked, and recovered across the region. Each of these tests carried its own level of secrecy, especially when tied to national security. Military personnel were trained to stay silent, offering only partial explanations or none at all when unusual debris was found by locals. This layered secrecy created an unspoken understanding. Sometimes strange things would appear on ranch land, and the safest response was simply to report it and step aside. The landscape itself, flat, vast, open for miles, made Roswell ideal for such tests. Unidentified objects were not rare. What was rare was acknowledging them openly. At the same time, the culture of the American Southwest brought its own perspective. Locals were accustomed to seeing the sky as a place of beauty and meaning. Indigenous communities in the region passed down stories of star beings, celestial travelers, and unexplained lights long before modern UFO sightings became mainstream. These narratives, though spiritual rather than technological, contributed to a sense that unusual phenomena in the sky were not entirely unexpected. Even ranchers and settlers, grounded in practical daily routines, developed a quiet respect for the desert night and the unpredictability it sometimes revealed. The horizon always felt a bit too vast, a bit too empty, inviting the possibility of extraordinary events. All of this, the secrecy, the changing world, the cultural backdrop, formed the perfect foundation for an event like the Roswell incident to take root. When strange debris would eventually be discovered in 1947, the environment was primed for uncertainty. Local residents had seen enough unusual activity to believe something extraordinary could happen, yet they lived in a world where official explanations often contradicted what their own eyes told them. Roswell before the crash was not just an ordinary town. It was a meeting point of global tension, technological experimentation, and centuries-old curiosity about the skies. As you drift deeper into this setting, imagine the desert evening settling across the land. The air cools, shadows lengthen, and the distant silhouette of the military base becomes just another quiet shape in the fading light. It is in this suspended stillness that the story soon to unfold begins to make sense. An unexplained event was not just possible, it was almost inevitable in such a charged environment. And softly, without warning, the stage was set for one of the most enduring mysteries in modern history. In the early days of July 1947, the desert around Roswell carried the same gentle quiet it always had. Winds brushing low over the dry grass, insects humming softly in the distance, and long stretches of open land where a person could walk for miles without seeing another soul. It was on one of these quiet mornings that rancher Mac Brazel noticed something unusual scattered across a remote portion of his property. At first, he thought little of it. Debris was not unheard of in the desert, especially with storms rolling across the plains. But as he drew closer, the scattered pieces caught the sunlight in a way that made him pause. These fragments did not look like remnants of a storm or the usual remnants from aircraft tests that occasionally landed far from their intended paths. They gleamed with a metallic sheen, thin yet strangely resilient, and they were spread across a long stretch of ground, as if something had come apart mid-air and drifted down in pieces. Brazel examined the material with growing curiosity. Some pieces crinkled in his hands like foil, yet refused to stay bent. Others felt lightweight but unnaturally strong, unlike anything he had encountered on the ranch. He noticed odd wooden-like beams marked with unfamiliar symbols, shapes he later described as resembling purples, blues, and strange geometric patterns. Though he wasn't an engineer or scientist, he had enough experience with practical objects to recognize that these materials didn't fit the usual explanations. Weather balloons and ballistics tests had certain predictable components, but this assortment felt different, almost deliberately puzzling. Still, Brazel had no desire to hold on to something that belonged to the government, especially at a time when military activity was common. After gathering a few pieces, he decided to head into town and report the discovery. When he spoke to the local authorities, his story quickly made its way to the Roswell Army airfield. Officers were dispatched almost immediately. Their arrival on the ranch felt strangely swift, as though they had been prepared for something unusual. Soldiers combed the field, collecting every fragment they could find, carefully placing the pieces into crates. While they worked, they exchanged few words, maintaining a professionalism that hinted at seriousness rather than routine cleanup. Brazel watched them silently, sensing a subtle shift in atmosphere. What he had assumed would be a simple retrieval seemed instead to be a matter of urgency. Later that day, the military issued a statement claiming they had recovered a flying disc. This announcement made headlines across the country almost instantly. Newspapers printed bold summaries, radio announcers buzzed with excitement, and the people of Roswell found themselves at the center of national attention. For a brief moment, it seemed as though something extraordinary had truly occurred, something beyond human technology, something that belonged to the realm of the unknown. But just as quickly, the story changed. Within 24 hours, the military retracted their initial statement, clarifying that the debris had been nothing more than a weather balloon. Reporters printed the correction, but questions lingered. Why had the first announcement been so decisive? Why the hurry to replace it with a mundane explanation? Eyewitness accounts began to diverge. Some residents insisted the military's behavior that day had been far too secretive for a simple balloon recovery. There were stories of officers visiting the local radio station and instructing them not to air certain details. Others mentioned that soldiers seemed tense, as though something about the debris had unsettled them. Psychological studies conducted decades later would note that memory is fragile, especially when influenced by fear, excitement, or suggestion. Yet even when accounting for these factors, many testimonies remained consistent. The material did not resemble ordinary balloon components, and the military's urgency seemed disproportionate. Researchers who later analyzed the case pointed out several odd inconsistencies. The Roswell Army Air Field was among the most advanced units in the world, staffed by personnel trained to identify aircraft, balloons, and experimental equipment. It seemed unlikely they would mistake a weather balloon for something extraordinary. Others suggested that confusion was understandable during a period when classified projects were hidden behind layers of misinformation. But still, the combination of Brazel's description, the military's abrupt actions, and the rapidly shifting explanations created a sense of lingering mystery. As you drift deeper into the story, imagine the desert night returning once the soldiers had left, the land quiet again, but not the same. Something had happened, something that stirred whispers and doubts that would persist for decades. The debris was gone, replaced with official statements and hurried clarifications, but the impression it left behind remained. People would debate what fell on that ranch for generations. Some would seek logical explanations, others extraordinary ones. But the simple truth was this: on that quiet morning in 1947, something unfamiliar touched down in Roswell, and no one since has been able to explain it in a way that fully settles the mind. In the gentle space between certainty and wonder, the real mystery continues to live. After the initial frenzy of discovery, a different kind of quiet settled over Roswell, one tinged with uncertainty and careful observation. The military's rapid response to Brazel's find had sparked curiosity and concern, but the true story began to twist beneath layers of secrecy and explanation. At first, the public was told that a flying disc had been recovered, a phrase that ignited imaginations across newspapers and radio broadcasts. Yet, within a single day, the message was revised. The mysterious material was nothing more than remnants of a weather balloon. For ordinary residents, the abrupt shift created confusion, leaving a sense that someone, somewhere, was withholding the full truth. The very act of retracting a bold statement often carries more weight than the original claim, and it fueled a quiet undercurrent of skepticism that would persist for decades. Looking back, historians and researchers note that the environment of the time made such contradictions almost inevitable. The Cold War was beginning, and the United States was acutely aware of espionage, foreign surveillance, and the strategic importance of experimental aircraft. Many government operations were shrouded in secrecy, designed to mislead anyone who might observe them. It is within this framework that Project Mogul enters the narrative. Mogul was a top-secret initiative involving high-altitude balloons equipped with listening devices meant to detect Soviet nuclear tests. The materials used in these balloons, metallic, lightweight, and unusual in composition, were easily mistaken for something otherworldly by those unfamiliar with them. While the project itself was highly classified, the presence of its debris in rural areas was inevitable, and the military's cautious approach reflected the need to protect sensitive information. Eyewitnesses reported behaviors that, in retrospect, align with this atmosphere of secrecy. Soldiers collecting debris moved with purpose and urgency, often offering little explanation and dismissing questions politely but firmly. Civilians and local law enforcement noted that officers seemed unusually tense, as if aware that any misstep in disclosure could have serious consequences. From a psychological perspective, this tension was magnified in the public imagination. Contradictory statements, hurried collections, and evasive explanations all created fertile ground for speculation. The mind tends to fill gaps with narratives that resonate emotionally, and in this case, the story of an extraordinary recovery was far more compelling than the mundane truth. Researchers analyzing the official reports have highlighted the subtle interplay between intent and perception. Military personnel were trained to prioritize operational security, which sometimes meant providing incomplete or misleading information. This did not necessarily indicate malicious deception, but rather a careful balance between national security and public curiosity. Conversely, for civilians, incomplete explanations naturally felt like concealment, reinforcing suspicions that something extraordinary had occurred. The discrepancy between official reasoning and public interpretation illustrates how simple communication gaps can become the foundation for enduring mystery. At the same time, competing interpretations emerged. Skeptics argued that the entire incident was a case of misunderstanding, a combination of unusual materials, unfamiliar technology, and human error. Others suggested that the retraction itself was proof of something more extraordinary, a deliberate cover-up to hide evidence of non-human origin. Historians note that both perspectives reflect broader societal conditions, the tension of the Cold War, rapid technological change, and the cultural fascination with the skies. The desert, the ranches, and the base became a theater where ordinary and extraordinary collided, leaving behind stories that could not easily be resolved. As you imagine the events of those days, picture the meticulous collection of debris under the hot desert sun, the careful labeling of materials, and the soldiers' quiet but deliberate movements. Each piece, placed into crates, each step measured and deliberate, conveys a sense of urgency without panic, professionalism with an underlying unease. Civilians watched and speculated, their minds naturally weaving narratives to explain what they could not fully understand. Even decades later, this tension between official reports and first-hand observations remains central to the fascination of the Roswell story. In this moment, the story settles into its enduring pattern: statements and counterstatements, questions without immediate answers, and a careful dance between transparency and secrecy. The desert night returns, and with it a sense of suspended possibility. What the official reports described may have been simple, mundane, even bureaucratic, but the memories, the curiosity, and the quiet unease left an imprint far stronger than any material debris could. In the gentle calm of this unfolding mystery, the mind begins to wonder, lightly and curiously, about what might have truly touched down in the desert and why the world was never allowed to see it in full. Over the decades that followed the events of Roswell, countless voices emerged to recount what they had seen, heard, or believed, each adding layers to the story in a way that blended memory, interpretation, and personal experience. Original witnesses, like rancher Mac Brazel, were joined by military personnel, nurses, and townspeople whose lives intersected with the incident in ways both direct and subtle. Some of these accounts were remarkably consistent, describing metallic debris that bent yet did not break, strange symbols on panels, or lightweight materials that seemed almost impossibly strong. Others offered details of objects that defied conventional explanation, small fragments that seemed to vanish under handling, or even visions of beings unlike any known creature. Though memories shift and perceptions are influenced by time, the repeated emergence of certain motifs, unusual materials, rapid military response, and unexplained behavior created a pattern that could not be dismissed entirely. Psychologists studying eyewitness testimony emphasize that human memory is fluid, especially when filtered through stress, fear, or excitement. Over time, recollections may blend with community narratives, media reports, and personal interpretations, creating a tapestry that is part fact, part perception. Yet this does not necessarily negate the validity of what witnesses report. Rather, it highlights the complex relationship between observation and understanding. In Roswell's case, even when accounts diverged in minor details, the core experiences, finding anomalous debris, seeing the urgency of soldiers, and sensing that something extraordinary had occurred, remained strikingly similar. The repeated patterns across independent testimonies give weight to the notion that an event occurred which exceeded ordinary expectations, whether its origin was technological, terrestrial, or something more elusive. Stories also surfaced from individuals indirectly connected to the incident. Nurses who claimed to have worked at nearby facilities reported seeing unusual bodies, restrained and studied in secrecy. Military personnel, decades later, described debriefings where discussion of the recovered material was strictly forbidden, emphasizing that even mention of the incident could carry consequences. These second-hand accounts, though often anecdotal, contributed to the sense that Roswell was more than a local curiosity. It was a moment where ordinary life intersected with forces and knowledge beyond public reach. Scholars of folklore and sociology note that such collective storytelling serves a dual purpose. It preserves memory and amplifies the mystery, allowing ordinary people to engage with extraordinary possibilities without fear of ridicule. as you drift deeper into the narrative. Imagine listening to these voices not as evidence to be dissected, but as quiet echoes from the past. There is a softness to the telling, a rhythm to recollection, where even contradictions carry meaning. The stories speak not only to what was seen, but to the human impulse to understand, to categorize, and to reconcile what is unfamiliar with what is known. When a soldier recalls the exact moment he first encountered debris, or a nurse describes the hush in a hospital corridor, the details create a tapestry of suspense and awe, subtle enough to calm the mind while stirring the imagination. Researchers over the years have approached these accounts with measured curiosity. They compare statements, analyze consistencies, and weigh them against official records. Some discrepancies are easily explained: memory shifts, confusion about timing, or conflation with other classified projects. Others resist explanation entirely, hinting at phenomena that elude conventional frameworks. The interaction between subjective experience and factual investigation creates a unique tension, one that is central to the allure of Roswell. It is not merely what was found in the desert that captivates, but how those who encountered it perceived, remembered, and later shared their experiences. Cultural and psychological frameworks also illuminate why these testimonies continue to resonate. In moments of uncertainty, people naturally turn to narrative to make sense of events. Stories serve as bridges between observation and comprehension, linking isolated incidents into a coherent, if mysterious, pattern. The repeated motifs, debris that bends yet is unbreakable, sudden military intervention, unexplained symbols, become markers of a shared experience that transcends individual perception. They invite contemplation, allowing the listener to float between possibility and certainty, between what is known and what remains elusive. In the quiet reflection of night, the combined voices of eyewitnesses create a gentle resonance. Their experiences are soft lights in the desert darkness, each one a point of curiosity guiding the mind along a path that is both soothing and mysterious. Through their accounts, you begin to sense the depth of human engagement with the unknown, the careful observation, the lingering questions, and the subtle awe that accompanies encounters with what defies expectation. And as the story unfolds, these voices form a continuous thread, connecting past and present, reality and speculation in a calm, almost dreamlike rhythm that carries you further into the unfolding enigma of Roswell. Beyond the desert plains of Roswell, the sky has been a stage for countless strange and unexplained encounters across the globe. From Europe to South America, reports of unusual aerial phenomena have been documented for decades, each one echoing elements of the mystery that first captivated the Southwest. In late December 1980, a small forest in England became the backdrop for what witnesses would later call the Rendlesham Forest Incident. Military personnel reported strange lights weaving between trees, metallic shapes hovering silently, and instruments behaving erratically. Even trained observers, accustomed to aircraft and natural phenomena, found themselves perplexed by objects moving in ways that defied conventional physics. The calm yet eerie atmosphere of those nights, described in hushed tones by the witnesses themselves, shares a quiet kinship with the early Roswell accounts. Something unfamiliar, observed in detail, and recorded in memory with careful attention. Similarly, in the late 1980s, Belgium experienced a wave of sightings that left communities across the country awestruck. Triangular craft, large and silent, moved in formations across the night sky, detected by both civilian observers and radar systems. The pilots described the sensation of tracking an object that seemed both mechanical and yet almost alive, a motion pattern that did not conform to ordinary aviation principles. What made these events particularly compelling was the convergence of multiple independent reports and the corroboration from instruments, creating a record that was difficult to dismiss as mere imagination. The Belgian wave illustrates how, across continents and cultures, the skies have become a persistent arena for mystery. Even in Australia and South America, accounts emerged of unexplained lights moving in precise but unconventional ways. At a school in Westall, Victoria, dozens of students and teachers witnessed a craft descend near the playground, its metallic sheen glinting in the afternoon sun. Though some dismissed it as an ordinary aircraft, the collective consistency of these accounts, reinforced by sketches and interviews, suggests a shared experience that went beyond mere error or suggestion. Observers consistently described movements, sounds, and materials that were unusual, sometimes imperceptible to instruments, yet unmistakable to those watching. It is in these repeated motifs, the brightness, the shape, the silent maneuvering, that a pattern begins to emerge, hinting at a phenomenon that is at once tangible and elusive. Global encounters often share subtle psychological and sociological characteristics. Witnesses tend to describe a sense of awe rather than fear, an awareness that they are observing something extraordinary yet incomprehensible. Communities respond in varied ways, from excitement to skepticism, but the stories persist, passing from generation to generation. Researchers studying these events highlight that cross-cultural similarity is striking. Lights, shapes, and behaviors described in Japan mirror those seen in Canada or Brazil decades earlier. Even as technology evolves, these encounters retain a timeless quality, as though the sky continues to whisper its secrets in a language that humans are still learning to interpret. Official responses also reveal patterns. Governments often downplay, reclassify, or investigate quietly, balancing public concern with security considerations. Declassified files, when examined decades later, provide glimpses into the seriousness with which authorities treated some of these events. Radar logs, pilot reports, and military correspondence show that the phenomena were taken seriously, even when explanations remained elusive. This careful documentation mirrors what occurred in Roswell, reinforcing the notion that a combination of mystery, secrecy, and observation is not unique to one place, but part of a broader, almost global tapestry. As you allow your mind to drift through these international skies, imagine standing beneath a dark horizon, the air still and cool, as distant lights move in ways your mind cannot fully track. Picture the subtle tension, the quiet awe, and the shared human impulse to observe, document, and reflect. Across deserts, forests, cities, and plains, there is a continuity to these experiences, a delicate thread connecting witness to witness, sighting to sighting. These patterns are not loud or aggressive. They are gentle ripples across the fabric of perception, encouraging contemplation rather than alarm. In this calm reflection, the global panorama of UFO encounters becomes more than a series of isolated reports. It is a chorus of quiet mysteries, each contributing to a larger understanding that something unusual continues to move above us, beyond immediate explanation. The stories echo, subtly reinforcing the sense that the sky is not empty, that human curiosity has always been drawn upward, and that the unknown persists in a soft, persistent rhythm. And as your awareness floats along this quiet expanse, the narrative carries you further into a world where observation, wonder, and gentle intrigue coexist, preparing you for the deeper exploration of origin, theory, and possibility yet to come. As the night deepens, the mind naturally turns to questions of origin, seeking to understand the phenomena observed in Roswell and across the globe. There are three broad paths of thought that researchers and observers have followed, each offering its own possibilities while leaving room for mystery. The first considers advanced human technology, acknowledging that the rapid pace of innovation during and after World War II produced aircraft and devices that could easily appear extraordinary to untrained eyes. Some theorists suggest that experimental craft, secret prototypes, or classified projects might explain sightings of metallic objects that defied conventional movement. High-altitude balloons, remote-controlled aircraft, and even early jet prototypes could account for a portion of these events. Yet even within this explanation, certain details resist easy classification. Debris that bends impossibly, lights that move without sound, or instruments that appear to react in unpredictable ways. The calm wonder of observation allows us to appreciate the skill and ingenuity involved, even while admitting that not every case is fully accounted for by terrestrial technology. A second path opens toward the possibility of extraterrestrial origin. The universe is vast, with billions of stars and countless planets orbiting them, and the mathematical likelihood that intelligent life exists elsewhere is considerable. Those who explore this perspective carefully, without succumbing to sensationalism, note patterns in reports that suggest consistency across decades and continents. Craft are described with similar shapes, sizes, and behaviors, and encounters often share psychological and physical effects on witnesses. Scientists approach the idea cautiously, emphasizing the challenges of interstellar travel, the limits of current propulsion technology, and the difficulty of verifying evidence conclusively. Yet the allure of possibility persists. Could some of these incidents be the result of visitors observing humanity, operating at the edges of our perception? The notion, while extraordinary, is presented not as a certainty, but as a thoughtful contemplation, a gentle suggestion that the unknown may not be confined to Earth. A third perspective ventures into more theoretical or paranormal explanations. Some researchers consider interdimensional or consciousness-based phenomena, proposing that objects and beings may not originate from physical space as we understand it. Concepts from theoretical physics, higher dimensions, time dilation, or alternate realities offer a framework for phenomena that appear to defy classical explanation. While such ideas remain speculative, they provide a lens through which repeated patterns of sightings, sudden appearances, and unexplained material properties might be interpreted. Witnesses often describe a subtle sense of otherness, a quiet impression that the event was somehow beyond ordinary perception, as if reality itself had shifted briefly. These accounts, when viewed collectively, form a soft yet persistent impression of the universe as more layered and complex than immediate observation allows. Across all three perspectives, researchers emphasize careful documentation, skepticism, and openness. Military reports, declassified files, radar data, and photographic evidence are weighed against eyewitness testimony, with an understanding that human perception is limited and memory is fluid. Historians and psychologists remind us that ambiguity is not a flaw, but a feature of genuine inquiry. The mind can hold curiosity and uncertainty simultaneously, exploring possibilities without forcing a conclusion. This approach allows the listener to engage with the mystery in a calm, contemplative way, embracing wonder while respecting critical thought. As you drift further into the narrative, imagine observing a slow, rhythmic dance of possibilities across the night sky. Technology, biology, physics, and perception intermingle like soft light on the desert floor. Each path of inquiry, human innovation, extraterrestrial visitation, or interdimensional phenomena, offers its own set of mysteries and insights. None demand immediate answers. All invite curiosity, reflection, and gentle speculation. The calm cadence of the story encourages your mind to float alongside these possibilities, appreciating patterns, noting anomalies, and recognizing that some questions are meant to linger rather than resolve. In this space, the unknown becomes a companion rather than a source of fear. You are invited to consider what could be, in the same breath that you acknowledge what is known. The night stretches endlessly above, filled with stars, possibilities, and quiet mysteries. By opening to multiple perspectives, the story nurtures a sense of wonder that is grounded, serene, and intellectually engaging. And as your thoughts drift along these gentle currents, you are carried deeper into contemplation, preparing to explore how these mysteries have imprinted themselves on human culture, imagination, and memory. Over time, the Roswell incident has moved beyond the boundaries of a single event to become a lasting imprint on collective imagination and popular culture. In the decades following 1947, the story has been retold, adapted, and reinterpreted in ways that touch movies, television, literature, and art. By the 1970s, authors and documentary makers began revisiting the original accounts, combining eyewitness testimony, government documents, and speculative analysis. Their work did more than entertain. It shaped the visual and conceptual language of UFO phenomena. The classic depiction of metallic flying discs, alien beings with large eyes, and secretive military cover-ups emerged in part from these retellings, blending fragments of fact with creative reconstruction. This cultural shaping has influenced how new generations interpret unusual events in the sky. subtly guiding imagination in a direction first inspired by a quiet desert discovery. The media has played a particularly powerful role in amplifying and preserving the Roswell narrative. Newspapers initially sensationalized the story, then retracted their reports, creating a rhythm of intrigue and doubt. Later, television programs and documentaries introduced dramatized reconstructions, interviews, and speculative scenarios, reinforcing the sense that something extraordinary had occurred. The repetition of these motifs, silvery debris, mysterious beings, sudden disappearances, established a template for UFO storytelling that continues to resonate globally. Scholars of media studies note that this pattern of reporting and reinterpretation demonstrates how society processes unexplained events, not only by seeking understanding, but also by transforming them into cultural symbols that persist far longer than the events themselves. The influence of Roswell is also evident in literature and film. Science fiction authors drew upon the imagery of the desert crash, blending it with imagination to explore broader themes of human curiosity, fear, and the unknown. Movies of the 1980s and 1990s, inspired by these accounts, presented extraterrestrial visitors and government conspiracies in ways that reflected both awe and anxiety. Even when fictionalized, these works retained echoes of the original witness descriptions. Lights in the sky, strange materials, sudden disappearances. They allowed audiences to explore uncertainty safely, framing extraordinary possibilities within narrative structures that were engaging yet non-threatening. A perfect environment for the human mind to explore curiosity while remaining comforted. Beyond media and literature, the Roswell story fostered new subcultures and communities dedicated to investigation, research, and discussion. Enthusiasts gathered at conferences, museums, and online forums, sharing documents, conducting interviews, and debating evidence. These communities often approach the topic with a mix of careful documentation and speculative curiosity, balancing critical thinking with imagination. For many, the appeal lies not in proving a single truth, but in participating in a living dialogue with history, science, and mystery. This collective engagement demonstrates how one event can ripple outward, influencing thought patterns, hobbies, and even careers across generations. Interestingly, the cultural imprint of Roswell has not diminished over time. It has evolved. As new government disclosures, declassified files, and unexplained phenomena emerge, they are often interpreted through the lens shaped by Roswell. The incident established a framework for understanding mystery in the modern era, a model that blends observation, official explanation, skepticism, and wonder. People worldwide now approach aerial anomalies with a mixture of caution and anticipation, expecting that the unknown might contain something extraordinary, even if the evidence is incomplete. In this sense, Roswell has become both a historical event and a cognitive template for processing uncertainty and curiosity. As you drift further into the narrative, imagine the story's influence spreading across decades, seeping into the consciousness of countless individuals. Each retelling adds subtle textures, shapes, colors, sounds, feelings that collectively create a shared vision of mystery and awe. It is a gentle reminder that human imagination is inextricably linked to experience and memory, and that stories can outlive their origins, shaping the way we perceive both the ordinary and the extraordinary. In the quiet rhythm of this reflection, the cultural impact of Roswell emerges not as loud spectacle, but as a soft, persistent hum of curiosity, guiding minds toward wonder while maintaining a calm, contemplative presence. In this space, the desert crash is not simply a historical footnote. It is a living idea, a point of intersection between fact, memory, and imagination. By tracing its influence across media, literature, and community, the mind begins to perceive the subtle ways human culture adapts and incorporates mystery. And as the night stretches on, you can sense that the story of Roswell, like the stars themselves, continues to cast a quiet, luminous glow, inviting reflection, curiosity, and a gentle acceptance of the unknown. In recent years, the conversation around unidentified aerial phenomena has shifted in ways that were almost unimaginable a few decades ago. What was once dismissed by mainstream science and ridiculed in popular culture has now entered the corridors of official inquiry and governmental acknowledgement. In the 2010s, a series of events brought renewed attention to the phenomenon, beginning with the release of U.S. Department of Defense videos depicting unidentified objects captured by military pilots. Unlike earlier decades, when such sightings were relegated to obscure reports in local newspapers, these modern encounters were documented with sophisticated sensors, radar data, and high-resolution cameras, providing a level of evidence that commanded serious attention. The videos, showing objects moving at extraordinary speeds, executing sudden maneuvers, and appearing to defy conventional aerodynamics, challenged assumptions about what is possible in our skies, and sparked a global conversation about the nature of these unidentified aerial phenomena. This new era of disclosure has also been shaped by official terminology and investigative frameworks. The term unidentified aerial phenomena, or UAP, has largely replaced the more sensational UFO, reflecting a deliberate effort to approach the subject with scientific rigor and neutrality. Government reports, congressional hearings, and official statements have emphasized that the phenomena are unexplained, not necessarily extraterrestrial, and worthy of systematic study. These efforts underscore a critical point. Modern investigations prioritize credible observation, instrumentation, and analysis over sensationalism. Witnesses, often highly trained military personnel, report seeing objects that defy simple classification, prompting careful documentation and methodical reporting procedures. The result is a body of evidence that is both compelling and cautiously framed, designed to invite inquiry rather than hysteria. Modern encounters echo certain elements of the Roswell story while expanding the scope of mystery. Pilots report objects that appear to accelerate instantaneously, hover without discernible propulsion, or execute sharp turns impossible for known aircraft. Radar operators sometimes detect anomalies that vanish or reappear in ways inconsistent with standard aerial physics. In some cases, multiple sensors corroborate observations, providing cross-validation that enhances credibility. These encounters often occur near military installations or restricted airspace, which recalls the historical context of Roswell, where sensitive operations and unexplained debris intersected. The resonance between past and present events suggests continuity. While technology and observation tools have advanced, the essential phenomenon remains puzzling, characterized by its elusiveness and unpredictability. The scientific community approaches these modern phenomena with both interest and caution. Some researchers investigate the possibility that UAPs may represent advanced terrestrial technology, including classified aerospace projects, experimental drones, or atmospheric testing platforms. Others explore more speculative possibilities, including extraterrestrial visitation or unconventional physical phenomena. Across all approaches, there is an emphasis on data collection, peer review, and careful hypothesis testing. Studies incorporate radar analysis, flight telemetry, eyewitness testimony, and environmental factors, attempting to distinguish genuine anomalies from natural or man-made misidentifications. Importantly, the dialogue between skeptics and open-minded investigators has intensified, creating a more balanced environment for exploring questions that were once marginalized. The role of eyewitness accounts remains central, even in the era of high-tech surveillance. Pilots, air traffic controllers, and military personnel provide first-hand observations that, when combined with instrument data, offer a nuanced picture of UAP behavior. These individuals often describe a mix of awe and caution, noting that their encounters challenge conventional understanding without necessarily implying threat or alarm. The human perspective adds a layer of psychological context, revealing how trained observers interpret sudden, unexplained events. Unlike early accounts in the 1940s, these modern witnesses operate in a highly structured reporting system, contributing to a growing archive of credible experiences that are analyzed for patterns, consistency, and anomalous characteristics. Governmental transparency has gradually increased, contributing to public awareness and scientific dialogue. The establishment of the U.S. Navy's UAP Task Force and later the All-Domain Anomaly Resolution Office (ARO) reflects institutional recognition of the need to systematically study these phenomena. Reports submitted to Congress summarize encounters, catalog sightings, and identify trends, while remaining careful to distinguish between confirmed explanations and unresolved events. Notably, many sightings remain unexplained despite sophisticated instrumentation, suggesting that there are aspects of aerial behavior and physics yet to be fully understood. This cautious yet thorough approach mirrors the investigative rigor expected in other domains of science, framing UAPs as legitimate subjects of inquiry rather than objects of fear or speculation. Media coverage and public interest have also evolved, reflecting a balance between curiosity and responsible reporting. Documentaries, news segments, and academic publications now present UAP encounters with attention to verified data, corroborated witness accounts, and expert analysis. The conversation has shifted away from sensationalism and towards sober reflection. These are phenomena that deserve study because they challenge current understanding, not because they confirm a predetermined narrative. As a result, public perception is gradually becoming more nuanced. Rather than dismissing sightings outright, people are increasingly willing to consider the possibility that there are elements in our skies that are both real and incompletely understood. Modern technology enhances investigation in ways that were unimaginable in the 1940s. High-resolution satellite imagery, infrared cameras, multispectral sensors, and advanced radar systems allow investigators to detect, track, and analyze objects in unprecedented detail. Data analysis software can model trajectories, calculate speeds, and cross-reference multiple sources to build comprehensive profiles of encounters. In some cases, anomalies detected by radar correspond to visual sightings, creating multimodal datasets that enhance credibility. This convergence of human observation and technological measurement offers a new framework for understanding aerial phenomena, one grounded in evidence, pattern recognition, and analytical reasoning. Despite the progress in documentation and investigation, the phenomena remain elusive. Some objects disappear without trace, others defy conventional aerodynamics, and a few produce interactions with instruments that are difficult to explain. The mystery endures, suggesting that there are limits to current understanding, and that the unknown continues to inspire awe and inquiry. The connection to Roswell becomes apparent. Both represent moments where ordinary observation encounters something unexpected, defying immediate explanation. The modern era provides more tools, more witnesses, and more analytical frameworks, yet the fundamental experience, the sense of encountering the unexplained, remains remarkably consistent. As you reflect on these developments, picture the vastness of modern skies, dotted with aircraft, satellites, and distant stars. Amid this complex canvas, there are objects whose behavior challenges expectation, whose presence invites observation, and whose reality persists despite rigorous scrutiny. Imagine the quiet tension in a cockpit, the focused attention of radar operators, and the methodical logging of every unusual occurrence. Each sighting, each piece of data, adds to a slow, unfolding narrative, a narrative that honors curiosity, embraces uncertainty, and treats the unknown with respect. In this calm space, you recognize that modern disclosure is not about sensational headlines or dramatic inclusions. It is about persistent observation, careful analysis, and the patient accumulation of knowledge that may, over time, reveal new understanding. The story of modern UAPs is thus both a continuation and an expansion of the Roswell legacy. It reminds us that while the methods of observation have changed, the essence of the experience, witnessing something unusual, grappling with uncertainty, and balancing wonder with reason, remains constant. In the gentle stillness of night, you can sense a continuity across decades, a bridge between past and present that invites reflection, contemplation, and curiosity. The skies remain open, the possibilities expansive, and the pursuit of understanding ongoing, carrying you deeper into the mystery while maintaining a serene, meditative awareness of the unknown. As the night stretches on, a deep sense of stillness settles around you, carrying with it the quiet rhythm of desert winds and the distant shimmer of countless stars. The story of Roswell, of lights in the sky, of unexplained debris, and of whispered government secrets, begins to fold in on itself like a slowly turning tide, inviting reflection rather than urgency. There is no need to rush toward answers, no need to chase resolution. In this suspended space between curiosity and understanding, you can allow yourself to simply exist alongside the mystery, letting it wash over your mind with calm intrigue. The human fascination with the unknown has always been a gentle companion in the night, a subtle pull that encourages both wonder and relaxation. It is in this balance between evidence and imagination, certainty and ambiguity, that the mind finds room to breathe, to explore, and ultimately to drift. You may begin by envisioning the quiet desert night once more. The land is vast and empty, yet not barren, touched by the glow of a fading moon and the soft sparkle of distant stars. Imagine standing on a low ridge, the cool earth beneath your feet, the horizon stretching endlessly in every direction. The silence is deep, but it is not complete. A whisper of wind moves through sparse vegetation. The occasional call of a night bird drifts across the air, and somewhere far off, the hum of a lone vehicle fades into the darkness. It is here, in this serene landscape, that you can place yourself alongside the witnesses of decades past. Each individual who observed the extraordinary, whether in 1947 Roswell, in the forests of England, the skies of Belgium, or the plains of Australia, shared a similar quiet encounter, a moment where the ordinary world met the inexplicable, and they bore witness with attentive calm, often awe-filled, sometimes unnerved, but always profoundly human. Consider the psychological weight of witnessing something unexplained. Those who encountered the debris at Roswell or the lights and craft in later decades were often trained observers, farmers, soldiers, pilots, and scientists. Yet even the most practiced eyes struggled to reconcile what they saw with what they knew. The mind instinctively seeks patterns, explanations, and frameworks, but when confronted with anomalies, it pauses. It hesitates. And in that pause, a subtle transformation occurs. Perception expands, imagination opens, and wonder takes root. You may feel a similar pause now, as you listen to the narrative, allowing yourself to inhabit a space where observation and curiosity coexist peacefully. There is no need to force understanding. It is enough to feel the gentle tension between known and unknown, to let it linger like a soft, invisible presence at the edge of awareness. History teaches us that mystery is rarely confined to a single moment. Roswell did not exist in isolation. It was part of a continuum of human experience with the sky. Across continents and generations, people have observed lights and shapes that defy explanation, and they have passed these observations into stories, records, and folklore. Each account carries both detail and emotion, fact and perception, weaving a collective tapestry that is at once tangible and elusive. This enduring pattern reminds us that mystery is not simply about the unexplained object themselves, but about the way humans engage with the unknown. Witnesses, writers, and researchers have all contributed to this ongoing dialogue, each layering insight, skepticism, and reflection upon the last. And tonight, in the gentle quiet of your own surroundings, you too become a participant, silently observing, contemplating, and allowing the narrative to unfold within your mind. It is also worth reflecting on the nature of secrecy and revelation. In 1947, official statements shifted rapidly from the announcement of a flying disc to the claim of a mundane weather balloon. This tension between disclosure and concealment created fertile ground for speculation and imagination, a dynamic that continues to shape our relationship with mystery today. Governments, researchers, and individuals approach unexplained phenomena with varying degrees of caution and openness, carefully balancing curiosity with responsibility. Modern declassified reports, congressional hearings, and scientific analyses demonstrate that some questions are taken seriously, even when answers remain incomplete. In the soft rhythm of the night, this dynamic can be appreciated not as a source of anxiety, but as a testament to the enduring complexity of the unknown and to the human capacity to engage with it thoughtfully and deliberately. Cultural reflection deepens the experience. Roswell has inspired movies, books, art, and communities that continue to explore the boundary between reality and imagination. These cultural echoes do more than entertain. They provide a framework through which we process uncertainty. Stories of extraterrestrial visitors, unidentified craft, and mysterious lights offer safe spaces for contemplation, spaces where wonder is encouraged and fear is minimized. They allow us to meditate on what lies beyond our immediate perception, to acknowledge that the universe may be far more intricate than our instruments can measure or our minds can fully grasp. In this reflective state, it becomes easier to accept that not every mystery requires a solution, and that there is serenity in coexistence with the unexplained. Imagine, too, the night sky as it stretches beyond the desert, beyond Roswell, beyond individual accounts. Picture the soft glow of distant stars, each a sun to worlds we may never know. Perhaps some of the objects that humans have observed originate from these distant places, or perhaps they are manifestations of dimensions, forces, or technologies still beyond our comprehension. The precise origin is secondary to the experience itself, the awe of observation, the subtle thrill of uncertainty, and the sense that we are part of a larger, more mysterious cosmos. As your awareness floats across this expanse, the details of debris, lights, and testimonies merge into a gentle hum of possibility, a rhythmic pattern that mirrors the calm, quiet beat of your own breath. This is a space where the boundaries between observer and observed begin to soften. The story of Roswell and the broader phenomena of UFOs and UAPs are no longer simply historical events or scientific questions. They are invitations to inhabit a mindset that embraces curiosity, patience, and wonder. Each fragment of evidence, each account, each cultural reflection acts like a small point of light on a vast map, guiding your thoughts without demanding conclusions. In this calm exploration, the unknown is transformed from something threatening into something intimate, approachable, and deeply contemplative. As you drift further, the narrative naturally slows, like a river moving quietly under moonlight. Consider the witnesses once again, the ranchers, pilots, military personnel, and students, each quietly absorbing what they observed, recording it internally, and sometimes sharing it with caution. Their experiences, layered over time, illustrate the human impulse to understand, to question, and to reflect. And in this quiet night, you can align with that impulse, letting your thoughts wander gently across time and space, touching upon history, mystery, and imagination in equal measure. The interplay of fact, speculation, and reflection becomes a gentle rhythm that carries you into rest. Finally, allow yourself to rest in the embrace of not knowing. The desert night, the soft hum of wind, and the infinite expanse of stars above all encourage a release of tension and the acceptance of ambiguity. The mysteries of Roswell and the skies beyond are not diminished by your relaxation. In fact, they are enhanced by it, becoming companions in your journey toward sleep. You can sense the continuity of human wonder, the shared curiosity that spans generations, cultures, and continents. This continuity is quiet, reassuring, and deeply peaceful, a reminder that even when questions remain unanswered, there is calm in engagement, comfort in observation, and serenity in the slow unfolding of the cosmos. And so, in this gentle and expansive space, you allow the story to settle around you, not as a puzzle to solve, but as a soft, luminous presence. The desert, the stars, the whispers of witnesses, and the hum of possibility form a delicate tapestry, guiding your mind into stillness. You drift in harmony with the rhythm of the narrative, the weight of the day dissolving, replaced by the quiet wonder of the unknown. The story ends not with resolution, but with peaceful contemplation, leaving you cradled in the gentle embrace of mystery, ready to enter a restful, dream-filled sleep where curiosity, serenity, and cosmic wonder coexist perfectly.